Hey folks. So, I wasn't really quite sure how to do this. Um, I tend to ramble a lot, so, and this is a pretty big topic, and I figured that I would write it out and then read it to you, and if I feel that something else needs to be added or commented on, then I'll just go ahead and do that. Much like my ayahuasca, um, experiences that I read on YouTube. It just helps to go with the flow of things, and it also helps me to hit the points I wanted to hit. Um, so, without further ado, um, here we go. And I just want everybody to know that I say this in love. And I just want everybody to be safe. And I feel that this needs to be talked about. So, um, so I've been following TFR, Truth Frequency Radio, or now it's TFRlive.com. And on that channel, there's a show called Beyond the Veil. And TFR has been around since, I've been following the talk show Truth Frequency Radio since 2010, when they were on American Freedom Radio. And there was a show that they had where David Icke was guest, and I had been following, David Icke, and listening to his, the events that he has where he, talks about some very controversial, subjects, and if anything, it was entertaining. I don't necessarily believe it all, but it's entertaining. And so anyway, they were having David Icke as a guest on their show, so I tuned in and I listened to the show, and I really liked how Chris and Sheree would comment on David's comment, and I felt like it was a very good show, and I felt like Chris and Sheree definitely had a respect for the medicine, and so I started listening to Truth Frequency Radio after that interview with David Icke, and I followed them through their progress of alien conspiracy theory all the way to, being lightworkers and to self-proclaimed neo-shamans. And as I listened to their archives during my daily work, I was entertained by their wonderful shows. They would feature interesting guests and would rarely argue with them. Chris showed the listeners a wonderful example of how to approach controversial topics in a positive manner. Every time the topic of ayahuasca would come up, I would get chills of excitement shoot up my spine. I wanted to try it so bad, and I would be mesmerized as I listened to the amazing experiences in the ayahuasca realms that Chris has had. I respected that he thought of it as a sacrament to Mother Earth, and he always referred to Earth as our mother, a divine being who loves and provides for us all. He spoke a clear message that Mother Earth is the divine goddess of our ancestors spoke about. He spoke about the spirit guides of his, that is called Isis, who was one of his spirit guides. And they worked with him, that spirit guide worked with him and showed him how to dissolve his ego. And it was not only entertaining, but very, I really resonated with that message of working with the spirit guide to dissolve the ego. And it was very, very, I don't know what the word is, but truthful, very, I really felt the essence of that process. So Chris's stories were amazing, and I wanted to meet this spirit guide. I wanted to connect with Mother Earth. And something in me has always known that this planet we live on, no matter what shape it is, or it may be, is a living being who allows us humans to live on her. And soon read the guide, How to Brew Ayahuasca, and I was thinking of brewing it and drinking it by myself at home. I am very thankful that I listened to my intuition and did not go forward with this. In 2015, I found an ayahuasca retreat. It was affordable and it was reputable. And needless to say, this changed my life. This experience could not have been done at home safely. Although I was nowhere near death, it certainly felt like a near-death experience. That is definitely not something I could have handled at home in the rules of society. I do go further into details on my YouTube channel, forceadvisor@youtube.com, if anybody's interested. Look up the video, Ayahuasca Broke My Addiction to MMORPGs. That was my first ayahuasca experience. So, since then I have been drinking ayahuasca about every month. I'm on a spiritual path as a student of plant shamanism. However, I am not a shaman. There are no classes to take for plant shamanism. The ceremony is the class. I learn by participating, observing, and being available to assist when I see a participant needs help in their process. I sit with the medicine and listen to Pachamama's teachings as she guides me to help others through their healing process. No healer that I know of or work with will admit that they are shaman. However, the healing that they do is very shamanic. A shaman is not a guru. There are no followers of shamans. There are no lessons verbally taught by shamans that I know of. And he or she sings the songs that the spirit has taught him or her to sing. The songs are learned by listening and resonating with the vibration of the songs, also known as ikaros. Our ancestors, if one resonates strongly enough, the ancestors will sing through the participant. The songs are the same songs that our ancestors sang. We all know them, but they are buried deep within our DNA. The plants in the community shows us how to unlock the healing ability. The plant shamanism is about building community. One cannot practice plant shamanism alone safely. And even if you look at the vine itself, the ayahuasca vine, Banisteriopsis capti, is actually a community of vines intertwining together and helping each other to grow larger and larger. You look at many of these plant medicines, mushrooms are the same. Mushrooms grow in groups, in communities. Salvia, it grows in a community, in a bush. San Pedro grows in community. All of these plants, they grow in community. They are community. They love community. They teach community. They are not alone. So a part of ego dissolution is shedding our fear of other people, known as strangers, especially when they speak another language. I work in circles of 60 plus people on average, And I have seen some miracles happen in front of me. I have seen some very intense healing take place that one cannot receive alone at home. Many of these so-called strangers have actually become my best friends, and I consider many of them my family. Psychonauts, on the other hand, take psychedelics alone and with few friends. But shamanic practitioners drink with community. The ayahuasca vine herself is made of a community of vines helping each other to grow. She loves community. Mother Earth loves her children working together to build community. This is where you witness the real magic that takes place. In my experience, those who only take medicine by themselves risk losing their minds and falling into the path of darkness, also known as the left path, also known as sorcery. A student with no guidance is easily manipulated. Up until the beginning of 2018, the Geo's talk show, TFR, now called BTV, Beyond the Veil, really inspired me, and it was encouraging to listen to a talk show which often focused on ayahuasca and conscious expansion. They spoke about their spirit animals and their spirit guides, and I gave my support to the show and listened to all the archives. That was until the day of the eclipse. This is when it all changed. On the day of the eclipse in 2018, after eating a double bacon cheeseburger the night before, Chris and Sheree decided to spontaneously drink an ayahuasca analog called ayahuasca without any kind of diet. It was totally spontaneous. They didn't even plan to drink this, but they just felt like they should, and so they did. From listening to their testimony, it sounded like they were confronted by a malevolent trickster entity. And without the proper shamanic training and experience, they fell prey to a very odd belief system and dedicated the BTV talk show, the Beyond the Veil talk show, to this new belief system. So since the eclipse, the Geos believe that we are all living in an actual matrix, much like the movie. They believe that Mother Earth is an artificial intelligence, and they called other humans that don't practice spirituality NPCs, also known as non-playable characters. They believe that the stars are computer chips of the motherboard of the Matrix, and that the spirit guides are antivirus programs. They now believe that there is a giant octopus-like entity absorbing our spiritual energy when we pray and meditate. They believe in raw consciousness instead of Christ, Krishna consciousness. They also believe heavily in the Egyptian pantheon, and they call everything else BS, including Source and Mother Earth. They believe that the chakra system are implants, artificial implants. They also no longer view the vine as a sacred plant being, but instead they think of ayahuasca, because they don't drink ayahuasca, as a tool to project beyond the veil. As you can see, this new belief system is heavily influenced by Chris's computer programming background. I was a fan of the show, and in many ways, they felt like my friends. I would call into the show at times. I was on their chat. I'd message them on Facebook. I'd comment on their Facebook pages. and just listening to them talk, I mean, it felt like I was, as if I was in the room with them listening to them talk, like, like friends. Um, and so I did have I cared for them. I still care for them. They were very kind and loving people who appeared to choose to love in every situation like a true light worker. I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I hoped that they would come to their senses, and I waited for them. I waited for them to have that one journey that would reveal this trickster being's intentions. But unfortunately, that did not happen. I listened to the show, but I noticed that their level of compassion for others were quickly fading. Chris even threatened to chokeslam David Wilcock for talking about avian ETs. Then he started calling those who are hesitant to drink medicine or smoke DMT pussies. Those are his words. And they really started to resonate with the vibration of the F word. Like, every other word became the F word. I understand, if when you're talking and the F word just, slips out, fine. But when it becomes part of your vocabulary, that is a problem, because it's a low frequency. It's a low vibration. When someone's cursing a lot, there's a reason why they call it cursing. They're vibrating at a low vibration. Also on Chris's Facebook, he would post to meditate by chanting, quote, "I don't give a fuck." So I was very disappointed in what I was witnessing. And a couple that used to be filled with love and light turned to darkness and hate. It was very disappointing and very disheartening. Because this couple used to be light workers, light warriors. I was still hoping that they would turn back to the light, and so I kept listening just to see if they would start to lighten up. Then the Egypt trip came. Chris and Sheree felt a powerful pull to travel to Egypt and drink ayahuasca. Not ayahuasca. They don't drink ayahuasca. They drink ayahuasca, which is an analog. Very important to know the difference. They were going to drink this brew in the pyramids. Before the geos left for Egypt, they energized many crystal shards, which were spiritually linked to the larger crystals that they were planning to plant into the walls of the pyramids in Egypt. If some of you know Drunvalo Melchizedek, he did this back in the 90s. It was either the 80s or the 90s. In the pyramids of South America, the Aztec and Incan Mayan pyramids. I believe a lot of them were the pyramids of Mexico. So like Yucatan and so on. You can read more about this in the book called The Serpent of Light by Drunvalo Melchizedek. So, anyway, so they did pretty much, what he did, where he planted crystals that were energized into these pyramids. So these shards were sent to customers who ordered the Aya Life CBD oil, which is CBD oil that's infused with the ayahuasca vine, which, that's That's pretty cool. And I thought that was a great idea, so I ordered, some Eye of Life, and I got a crystal shard. So during the trip, I followed the geos on Facebook, and honestly, I was pretty disgusted to hear Chris talk about, quote, burning down Giza, unquote, and mocking them. They mocked the men that were offering them camel rides. These men that are offering camel rides are barely making a living. They're not, they're offering camel rides to harass the customers or, to harass the, the tourists. They're literally trying to make a living. Like, they just don't believe. I don't believe that they had the right to mock them. I don't believe that they should be mocked. It's much like someone, trying to get make a living as a taxi driver. If you don't get customers in your car, you don't get money to feed your family. It's like that with the camel drivers, and I don't think they should have been mocked by asking, the geos if they wanted to ride on the camels. Understand, those people could be suffering. And instead of showing them compassion, the geos mocked them. And it was sad to see them choose hate instead of love, ignorance instead of understanding. So at the same time that the geos were in Egypt, I was in an ayahuasca ceremony. I had brought the crystal shard with me so I can create a spiritual link with the geos in Egypt. The spirit of ayahuasca told me during the ceremony, she told me not to connect my energy with theirs. She told me that the geos were going down a dark path and I was not to follow. Honestly, I felt sad to hear this. I felt sad to hear it from her. But deep down, I knew it was the truth. I felt like I had lost 2 dear friends. And I even had to purge afterwards. I gave the crystals back to Mother Earth and continued with the rest of the ceremony. When I returned home, I checked back on Chris's Facebook to hear the horrifying news that during the ceremony he went into a seizure. He went further than it is safe to go and almost didn't come back. This is very dangerous. It should not be attempted by anybody. I have drinking with literally hundreds of people from the ages of 18 to 80, and trust me when I say this, it is not normal to go into seizures when drinking ayahuasca. I'm not sure what they drank, but I know it was not ayahuasca, like they claim. When they showed this liquid in the video, it doesn't even look like ayahuasca. The drink was clear. I could actually see through the container they were drinking out of. And it appeared to be very refined. Ayahuasca is not clear. Those of you who have drinking it know how thick and not clear it is. It's brown. It could be the color of coffee, and it has different shades of brown. It could be a lighter brown or it could be like a dark brown, like black coffee. But it is never clear. And never see-through. You should not be able to see through the bottle. So, in the video of their ceremony, I could see through the liquid they were drinking, and that was not ayahuasca. So during his journey, Chris claims that he pressed a button to reset humanity's timeline. One must understand that nobody can press the reset button for anybody else but themselves. Chris may have pressed his own reset button, and that's fine if he didn't go into seizures, but nobody should ever claim to save humanity in the spirit realm. This is often known as the Messiah complex. Although it's an interesting way, it is a Messiah complex. When one claims to save humanity by performing a certain action, that's a Messiah complex. One must understand that although there may or may not be secrets to the universe externally, the plant teaches us about the secrets of the universe internally. It's much like the concept in the movie/book A Wrinkle in Time. One can travel the universe, but only by going within. See, we explore a universe within us. It is all subjective. This is why we all have different journeys, because we are not journeying through the same universe. Your universe is not the same as my universe, and our universe is not the same as Chris's universe. This is why nobody can tell you the secrets to your universe. It is all internal. So now I know why Madre, ayahuasca, did not want me to link with the Geos. They were not drinking responsibly, and because of that, they got spiritually abused. Just like a student cannot teach themselves martial arts without a sensei, a student of shamanism cannot teach themselves shamanism without a healer. So imagine there was a match between two fighters. One of the fighters spent his entire training watching videos, reading books, and trying to learn martial arts by themselves. The other student worked with a trainer, trained every day to, learn martial arts. Which one do you think would win in that match? I'll let you decide that. In my experience, you can't learn martial arts by reading books and watching videos. Shamanism is much the same way. So, there actually were beings that were trying to help Chris, but unfortunately he refused his help. He refused their help. You see, Pachamama and her helpers do not force themselves on participants. They respect our will. And so if someone does not want their help, they'll stand back. Unfortunately, the Geos have convinced themselves that the angels are not benevolent, and neither are the deities. So Hindu deities, or, Buddhas, Jesus, so on and so forth. They believe archangels to be archons. So, for example, if Archangel Michael came to help him, he would think of him as an archon and refuse his help. So you can see how that's limiting. And so they have actually limited themselves only to be helped by the Egyptian pantheon. This is spiritually limiting to oneself. The universe is filled with all sorts of spiritual beings. Many are benevolent, But when one refuses their help, it opens the door for other malevolent beings to confuse the healer. The ego wants to believe that they are divine and that they don't need any help. But this is spiritual ignorance. It breaks my heart to see Beyond the Veil has become this. I pray for the geos every day that they would come back to the light and find compassion for humanity once again. I pray they will reconnect with our beautiful Mother Earth, and I pray that they will find the real ayahuasca vine and drink and learn without the malevolent influence. The ayahuasca vine provides protection that other medicines do not. I pray they will find a group of healers that will teach them how to ground and journey safely. The ayahuasca realm is blissful. If one thinks bliss is boring, then one has truly not discovered bliss. The problem that occurs often is when one steps outside of the ayahuasca realm and tries to venture into other realms. This is where disincarnated spirits reside, and many are malevolent. I like to think of this realm as a foreign market. Many beings are trying to sell you ideas that confuse you. They cause confusion, and many beings are trying to steal your energy, like a thief in a marketplace stealing gold. And other beings are trying to get you to follow them into dark alleys and portals. Never go into a portal from a being you do not know. A benevolent being will introduce themselves and will work with you for a while before they guide you anywhere. A relationship must be made. You would not jump in a car with a stranger, would you? It's a similar concept there. The geos are suffering from escapism. All they want to do is leave this realm. They do not want to incarnate here again, and to accomplish this, they believe they must project themselves further and further each time. This is what a psychonaut does, not healers. This is not healthy. One must learn how to ground themselves and communicate with the spirits without projecting too far. The cycle of incarnation is in nature, all around us. It is simply the way of the universe. When a tree falls, another tree rises. When a plant falls, its seeds sprout and more plants are grown. It's the cycle, and it's a healthy cycle. It is simply the way of the universe. And souls that do not accept this before they die, they become disincarnated spirits. These souls must then be led back to the light by a healer. It is much easier on the soul if they choose the light during their lifetime before their death. The truth is, there is no escape. There is no escape. We must heal the earth because there is nowhere else to go. This often happens with those of us who have researched, conspiracy theories, and, whether they be alien conspiracy theories, Illuminati conspiracy theories, so on and so forth. We often see how, messed up this world is, and we don't want to come back, and we just want to escape it. The good thing is that ayahuasca helps us to get through this escapism, but we must be willing to put in the work. But understand, There is nowhere else to go. Becoming your own shaman is achieving the wisdom to know which healers to work with. It is not about drinking a brew you made by yourself. One who drinks alone will never understand how to heal others. Get over your inner fear of strangers and go drink at a reputable, capitalized, big letters, quotation marks, underlined, reputable retreat. In other words, you know someone that has had healing there and they recommend it. Or you know a group of people that has had healing there and they recommend it. Know your retreat before you go to the retreat. Know everything about it. Have extensive knowledge of what is in the brew. Even ask the shaman themselves what's in the brew. That's totally fine. Many of them will make it with you. In fact, many of these retreats, they take you out to the vine, cut the vine down, harvest the vine, and you participate in making it. You smash it up and you brew it together with the shaman, and you see everything. And those are, the reputable retreats will not hide, anything. Unfortunately, the retreats here in North America, the brew has to be made and then shipped here. So unfortunately you can't see it made, and so in North America you really have to be careful on knowing that the medicine is reputable. You know people that have received healing from the place and they recommend it. Also, you do not want to drink anything that does not have the ingredients of Banisteriopsis caapi and chacruna. Those are the two plants that make up ayahuasca. Those are the only plants that need to be in the brew to make up ayahuasca. You do not want to drink a brew that has toei in it. You do not want to drink a brew that has scopolamine in it. You do not want to drink a brew that has datura. No, don't put those in your body. Make sure you're drinking a brew that is only Banisteriopsis caapi and chacruna. A good place that does this is the Church of Santo Daime. Santo Daime only has those two plants in their medicine. Period. Nothing else. And so if you can find a Santo Daime church, right on. You're drinking, the good stuff. So I rambled a little bit there. Sorry about that. Just remember to have extensive knowledge of what is in the brew, and most of all, let spirit guide you. Listen to your intuition. Have patience with yourself. If something doesn't feel right, maybe it isn't right. It's also important to know, to not be fooled by your ego too. Is it not right because you're afraid of what might happen? Or is it not right because there's some fishiness that's going on that's confusing and they're not, sharing details, So it's important to be wise in this situation. It's foolish to think you can become your own shaman without any guidance. Everybody is their own shaman, just like everybody is their own martial artist. Your abilities will be limited if you don't find a teacher. I would say your abilities will be limited if you don't find a community. Working with the community is really where the lessons come from plant shamanism. So, I'm writing this to bring awareness to anybody interested in ayahuasca and who may have stumbled upon BTV. For example, in our paradigm shift community, I've heard some people mention, Beyond the Veil, and I just want them to be aware of what is the history of Beyond the Veil and how they became what they are, how they became to this new belief system that wasn't always there. They really did used to be good people with good morals. But now they are involved in a dangerous practice, and one can get hurt by following in their footsteps. It is not acceptable to have nosebleeds or seizures when drinking ayahuasca. If one has not drank ayahuasca before, do not try to brew it alone. If you absolutely cannot find a reputable retreat, then have a knowledgeable sitter present. And this sitter you have present must be able to restrain you if you start freaking out, or if you try running away or calling 911. Understand, there is a very good chance that you may think you are dying. You're not. You're actually very far from death. If you're drinking ayahuasca, you're actually very far from death. However, you may think you are dying. I thought I was dying. You may have a near-death experience, and it's for the best. It's what you need. But if you are the type of person who will fight for your survival, then your 120-pound girlfriend will not stop you from running out of the house. Real shamans and healers, they don't work alone. They are accompanied by a team of healers who will prevent anyone from freaking out and running away. There are no phones present, and so 911 is not even an option. Many retreats are held off-grid for this reason. Remember, in a psychedelic medicine, we can always breathe. Our hearts are always beating. One can be far into the ayahuasca realm and still feel themselves breathing. Singing is usually encouraged to assist with breathing. If one is singing, they are breathing. And I really recommend that. If you have taken a psychedelic medicine and you're in a difficult place, start singing. Terence McKenna talks about this. It oxygenates your brain. It brings oxygen to your brain. It helps with your grounding. And it's almost like an anchor. The music is kind of like an anchor. That it's like, let's say you're on a sailboat in a rough sea. The music is kind of like a rope that you can grab. You're still riding, the sea. You're still riding in the boat. You're still in the journey. You haven't pulled yourself out of the journey, but you're just holding on. It's kind of like the bar on a ride. Some people like to go on the ride and raise their hands up, and then when it gets too scary, they grab the bar, right? That's kind of like it is on a roller coaster ride. The music is the bar. It's interesting because music has bars, but anyway. And so, grab that bar. Connect to the music. It's not going to take you out of the journey. It's going to help. And when you sing, it really helps you to not go too far. So sing. It's always encouraged. And every ceremony I've been to, it's encouraged to sing. So sing. It's spiritual martial arts. It's, light work, spell casting, whatever you want to call it. But singing is a exercise that works in both this realm and the other realms. So sing, because music travels through all the realms. In the West, we are bombarded with all sorts of media, from violent movies, negative influential talk shows, adult animations like Rick and Morty and so on, chat rooms, social media, and etc. The list goes on. Just remember, if anything influences you to lose your compassion for others, stop allowing yourself to be influenced in that negative way. If you are watching a show that has multiple maiming, slaughtering, decapitations, violence, extreme violence, that should bother you. Something in you should say, this is not right for me to be watching. Our daily shows, the stuff we watch on Netflix and HBO and so on, we see more death than, a medieval barbarian sees when slaughtering villages. I mean, we are surrounded by an extreme amount of violence. And it must take wisdom and intuition to understand. I'm interested in the plot of this show, but I am not going to subject my eyes to this violence. Eyes are the window to your soul. In many ways, we create our own hells. So if you don't want violent journeys, don't watch violent shows. That's my advice. And honestly, as you go on this spiritual path, you'll find, at least I have found that my interest in those shows I'm just not interested anymore. Like Rick and Morty, I was interested at first, because they would go through different realms and stuff, and it was, it was cool, it was, interesting, it was entertaining. But then they started like cutting off arms and, blood and violence, and I was like, nope, no more. Same thing with shows like, what's that one? Game of Thrones. I saw one episode and was like, nope, not gonna happen. I'm not gonna watch people's, heads on pikes and, children being abused. No, not gonna happen. So, although I'm very interested in that plot, I will not watch the show. So I'd like to hear what, some comments on, I'd like to hear your feedback on that. Also to note that if this violence does not affect you, that's a problem. That means that somehow you have been numbed to compassion. Your subconsciousness does not know the difference between watching violence on a show and watching violence in real life. That's why a lot of times, people freak out during horror movies or whatever. They say, "Oh no," and they get emotionally disturbed when watching a character on a television show die because they're involved in the show. They've, I don't know, broken that fourth wall, if you want to say. And that's because the subconscious doesn't know the difference. Understand that. This is also why it's very dangerous to watch pharmaceutical advertisement. Because the pharmaceutical advertisement asks you, do you have a dis-ease? And it tells you you have a dis-ease. Don't watch that. You don't want your subconscious thinking you have a dis-ease that you don't. Dis-ease. You're not at ease. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. So just remember, if anything influences you to lose your compassion for others, stop allowing yourself to be influenced in that negative way. Our compassion for others is vitally important for our personal spiritual path. Just be careful with who you listen to, and remember to always use discernment. It does not feel right, then it probably is not right. Plant shamanism opens the lines of communication with all of our ancestors. Unfortunately, not all of them are benevolent. In order to know the difference, we must listen to our intuition. It is a gift that protects us. Learn to use it, and you will never be led astray. Aho.